Hey Flutes, Mr. Venegas here. Today what we're going to learn is we are going to learn how to break apart the rhythms that you see in your fast etude, and also hopefully after watching this video you'll gain a bit more understanding on how the rhythm works, and also you'll learn some different ways on how to practice being accurate with those rhythms. But the first thing I want to talk about is this. You see a time signature of 2/4. Now, the top number tells you how many beats are inside a measure, which in this case you guys would see it's 2, so you would see 2 of any type of note. Now the bottom number, we haven't gone into detail about what that number means, but the bottom number tells you this actually tells you what note gets the beat. So when you see a 4 there, you have to know that that 4 means that the quarter note is what's going to get the beat. So anytime you would see a quarter note, it would be one solid beat. Now that we know about the time signature, I do want to go and I want to create a measure. So if I were to write my time signature again, 2/4, and I go ahead and I fill it with something that we know these quarter notes. Now, a quarter note gets one solid beat, so I'm going to write these directions up here. I know that my foot is going to go down and up. That's one full beat. Now, at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and write my counts. I write a big 1 and a big 2 because that's all that fits inside that measure. Now, but that's not the rhythm that you see in the music. I know. But we're going to break this apart in small pieces so you guys can understand this is how it works. And also, this is what you guys can internalize, so that way when you see this rhythm multiple times in your music, you'll have an easier time playing it. So stay with me. Now, let's say, for example, I want to break apart these 2 quarter notes into something smaller. Now, the next step, if I were to follow my rhythm tree, the next step would actually be to break apart my quarter notes into eighth notes. So remember, 2 eighth notes fit inside of 1 quarter note. So I'm going to draw this quarter note up here, just so we make sure that we understand where we're going with this. Okay, so that first quarter note, remember, I wrote a big 1 on the first quarter note, and I'm going to write a big 2 here. So now that I have those, I'm missing a bit of information. If you notice, since those 2 eighth notes are only worth half of a beat each, we're missing something else that we have to say. Now, my foot has to go up for that second eighth note because remember, down and up is worth 1 full beat. So now that I did that, I actually have to say the word "and" in between, so that way you know that's where my foot went up. So let's add the "and" right there. Great. Now let's try counting this really quickly. So if I were to snap my fingers, down, up, count with me, 1 and 2 and freeze. That's pretty simple. Now if you were to look at your music, you would say, gee, Mr. Venegas, it's a lot closer. It looks a lot closer, but there's still some little notes that have some differences in there. Right, but now what you see is you're actually seeing that you've known all along how to count this. Because of what we do with the pulsing, you're actually a lot better suited for learning how the eighth notes work. So when we go one step further, you're going to have an easier time. So check this out. Let's say I wanted to go one step further, and I'm going to erase that 1/8 note, and I'm going to break that 1/8 note into another subdivision. Now, what's smaller than an eighth note if I were to divide it into 2? It would be a 16th note. Now, a 16th note is very important because it's going to look similar to the eighth note, but it's going to have one big difference, and let me show you. Do you know what I did? If you notice, I actually drew a second line because that second line is telling you, hey, wait, this is a 16th note. It's not an 8th note anymore. Now, the reason why I put that line there is because two 16th notes fit inside of one 8th note. So hopefully if you've done the math in your head, the 16th notes, those two are worth half of a beat. So if I wanted to change another 8th note, for example, the first 8th note, I would have two other 16ths, which would mean 4 16th notes fit inside of one beat. Now, I bet your next question is, well, Mr. Renegas, you had to erase the and because we don't count it that way. Right. But here's what we do know. Do you notice where that arrow is? The up arrow? That up arrow is still valid. So what that means is that and is still there. Now, we are actually missing a little syllable for this counting. So when we're breaking it apart, we actually add one more syllable to it. We add an A. Now, I bet you're wondering though, well, Mr. Venegas, look, there's an 8th note there. That means that if I were to break that apart, I would actually have 2 16ths. But what do I say for that other 16th? It's an E. So if I had 4 16th notes, this is how I would say it. One E and that's all in one beat. It's crazy, but that's how it fits. Now, since that E is inside that 8th note, we're not going to say it. I just wanted to write it there so you know for your own knowledge that that's what's inside that 8th note. So let's look at the rhythm that you see right here. This is literally measure number 1. Now, let's follow my arrows. Here we go. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and freeze. Let's try that again. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and. It's not that hard, is it? Now, if you know where this upbeat is, you will have a much better chance of playing this etude rhythmically correct and in time. It really depends on that upbeat. So make sure that when you see this rhythm, which you do see it a lot, that rhythm, make sure you know where that upbeat is. Now, the next measure that you see is not too difficult at all because guess what? We broke this apart before we even started the 16ths. I bet you know exactly how to count this. So here's what we're going to do. I want everyone to try counting this with me. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and 1 and 2 and freeze. How'd you do? Let's try that one again. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and 1 and 2 and freeze. One more time. Remember, the secret to getting those 16th notes correct is finding out where that upbeat is. So if you're not tapping your foot, I would highly recommend to do that. A metronome is also going to help. Make sure that as you practice with the metronome, you also add on to the 8th note subdivision if you're able to. So that way you can tell where that upbeat is. Let's try it again. Down, up, ready, go. 1 and a 2 and 1 and 2 and freeze. Now, this rhythm, if you look at your fast etude flutes, you're going to notice that you have this rhythm a ton. Now, there's one part that this is going to help you understand this next rhythm. Now, the rhythm that I've drawn here on the bottom, this is another rhythm that you see in your piece of music. It looks different from the rhythms that I taught you at the beginning, but if you remember the things that I taught you here at the beginning, you'll be able to count this rhythm as well, and it's not as scary as you think. Now, the first way that I need you to understand is, remember that when we break apart an 8th note, we get 2 16th notes. All they did actually was flip So now we start with two 16th notes and an eighth note. So the first 16th note, you know that that's on the down, which means we're going to give it a number. Let's just say it's 1. Now, if we break apart the eighth note, we have two 16ths. What was that one I told you? Oh, it's right there. E. Now, the next direction my foot goes is up. So guess what you say there? An and. Now, the A is inside of that and, so you don't have to say the A. Then you have your eighth notes like normal. So let's try counting this. Down, up, ready, go. 1 E and 2 and, ready, go again. 1 E and 2 and. It's not that scary because you knew exactly how to break those apart. Let's try that again. Down, up, ready, go. 1 E and 2 and, freeze. Very nice. Now, no matter what, if you can understand how the eighth note separates into the 16th notes, you will be able to count these rhythms no matter what they throw at you. I want to thank you all for watching my video on this review. As always, flutes, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask me, Mr. Strauss, or send us an email and we will gladly be able to help you. Thanks a lot. This is Mr. Venegas, signing off. Bye-bye.